The opinions expressed on the following audio program are solely those of the host and the guests. Burner Podcast is an independently produced, not-for-profit show and is not associated with the Burning Man organization or its subsidiaries. The views expressed are not representative of the entire Burning Man community and are presented here for entertainment purposes only. In short, calm the fuck down. It's just a podcast.
And episode number 17. It is the 17th episode of the show, and the man burns in 53 days as of this recording. Fun little side fact. I actually just recorded this entire thing, and then some sort of a glitch crashed the recording program, so I have to do it all over again. What did I talk about here? Let's take a look at my notes. I talked about Native Aliens Contact, which was a couple of weeks ago, 4th of July weekend. It was really beautiful and amazing event. It is thrown by Alien Tom and Red Sonja. They are this incredible DJ producer couple that they work together, they play together, they throw events together, and they threw Contact together. Alien Tom and Red Sonja, and it was really a lot of fun. It was a really beautiful event. It was about 300 or 400 people, and it was at Rancho Agua Caliente in Mexico, about an hour east of Ensenada. There was a pool party, and of course, all the techno. It was a really great time. Had a really amazing time, and I hope to definitely go to that again next year. And then we decommed, of course, the week after with Planet of the Drums here in San Diego at Spin Nightclub. I'm not typically a drum and bass head, but I had a blast at this event. It's one of the things that I really do love about being part of this community is that, I'll kind of get sucked into events that I normally might not go to. But the major selling point is that it's not just like the 2 or 3 people that you're with that are saying, hey, let's go to this thing. You'll RSVP to the event, and 20 or 30 other people that will also have RSVP'd. So you'll walk around whatever the event is, whether it's a concert or a club or whatever, and you'll know like half the crowd. And that's really reason 726 why I am absolutely loving every minute of navigating this beautiful subculture of ours. So let's get to today's episode. Today's episode is another fantastic example of how every episode of this show is dramatically different from each other. It's pretty common that I will be having a conversation with a friend or a new acquaintance at some sort of an event or a fundraiser or a party, whatever, who knows. We're having a conversation while we're taking a break from the techno, and they'll say, oh, yeah, I gotta go listen to that show. I'm just gonna start from the first episode and just work my way all the way through. And I'm like, you know what? You don't have to do that. You really don't. As awesome as the first episode is with Brady Mahaney, and as awkward and horrible as I sound, still getting my feet wet, getting this show going, you really don't have to do that because every episode of this show is dramatically different. One episode feels kind of like a more quote-unquote professional radio interview where we're talking the history of a certain music scene. And then the next episode might be a very quiet chat, which is kind of a little bit more about what this episode, the one that you're listening to now, the interview that you're about to hear with Curt Benedetto, is one of those more quiet conversation episodes. Curt is a good friend, and he is a San Diego community mainstay. If you have been to San Diego or if you live in San Diego, you probably know Curt. It's hard not to know him. He's a very big personality. And this episode is one of those chats with a close friend. When people were hearing that we had Curt booked on the show, the response was usually, oh man, this is going to be really good. It's going to be fucking hilarious. Because if you run into Curt and I at a party or a gathering or something, it's just, we're sparring. It's a lot of snark and smart acidness, and we're being funny and cheesy. And, the two of us could probably just start our own, like, terribly adult morning show. Wake up with Curt and Arash. And that'll be like the stuff of your nightmares for the rest of the day. But that's usually the way that we are when we're hanging around. So everybody was expecting this episode to be very funny. And it has its funny parts. But the direction of the episode definitely went a little bit more serious than I was expecting it to go. And that's something that I've experienced from years of doing interviews, that you don't get to force what the energy of the interview is going to be. You go with wherever that wave is going. And the more you try to plan it and the more you try to force it and you try to make it a certain kind of show, in my experience, the shittier the interview gets. And thankfully, I have been doing this long enough to know not to do that. So it's not as funny as everybody was thinking it would be. And I think at some point during the interview, we do actually comment on that too. But it was nice to really sit down and like be serious is a very strong word, but to be a little bit more somber together for once and really just get into the backstory of Curt's life in San Diego and his upbringing, his experience as a hair artist, and watching this community sort of building from the outside, you know, knowing all these weirdos for all these years and seeing it all sort of coming together the way it has. We talk about cops. Spoiler alert, Curt does not get arrested, that I know of at least. We talk about Frock U, which is the business that for many years Curt has been involved in. Frock U is this amazing vintage clothing shop that is not only a mainstay of the burner community in San Diego, but San Diego as a whole. If you have some sense of style, you've probably been to Frock U at some point. And then we talked about Curt hazing me. We talked about that for a little while. Because as I've told, you probably know a lot of my story throughout these meandering, blabbing interviews. I'm fairly new to the community, about 2 or 3 years, I think, at this point. And this show sort of came about because I was already looking to have these conversations with people anyway. I wanted to get to know people more and more anyway. So I said, fuck it, might as well hit the record button, since interviews and podcasting is something I'd already been doing for like 4 or 5 years. So this could be my little gift to the community. So Curt hazed me a bit. So we talk about hazing. we talk about the importance of having a tough skin to be a part of this community. And it's not to say that you absolutely have to. I mean, I would highly recommend it. But I do think that not having tough skin can make it... you might miss out on some things. You might shy away from certain people that will eventually turn out to be very important people in your life, or experiences that might end up being very important experiences in your life. So we do get to talk about that a little bit. And, originally producer Meg had booked Curt with the intention of a lot of this conversation being about a volunteer burnout. I think that was sort of her idea when booking Curt. And we do talk about that. We talk about some of the tougher things that you go through with Curt's experience with San Diego Core a couple of years ago, which was the project around the man. I think like 2012 and 13. I'm not sure. You know what? We talk about all that. We get into all those details. And towards the end, we do talk about alcoholism and what it's like dealing with that as a burner. So let's go ahead and get right into it. Maybe it's a good thing that I re-recorded this entire intro, because the original version was, I think, like 13 minutes long, and now it's like, I don't know, 7 or 8. It was lucky for you. My computer decided to shit on me for a second, the recording equipment. Let's go ahead and get into it. This is the part where I do this thing. I go by Mr. Arash, even though nobody calls me Mr. Welcome to Burner Podcast.
On the first part of the journey, I was looking at all the life. There were plants and birds and rocks and things. There were sand and hills and rain. The first thing I met was a fly with the bugs and the sky with no clouds. The heat was hot and the ground was dry, but the air was full of sound. I've been through the desert on a horse with no name. It felt good to be out of the rain. In the desert, you can't remember your name, 'cause there ain't no one
like some of the background craziness and just kind of start recording, and eventually conversation starts to come out of it.
In other words.
Yeah. It's what?
It's on.
It's on. It is. It's recording right now. Whatever you want, you don't want out there to be public information. Right now is the time that you stop talking about it.
Start checking yourself.
They're gonna make shit up anyway.
Yeah. No, I mean it's ultimately, I guess worst case scenario, we can just say, you know what, this show's for entertainment purposes only, and then this is all just fun and games, and none of it actually means anything. I always wonder like what the legalities behind that. At some point, I'm gonna have to have like an attorney on as a guest to discuss how some of that works.
Right, and does the disclaimer of anybody I offend in this podcast, I really apologize ahead of time. It's not meant to be slander. Please don't sue me.
I have that in the opening. I have the offensive part in the opening, but not necessarily the part where we might be talking about things that, depending on what state or country you're living in, may or may not be entirely in the legal area. So, who knows? I mean, a lot of it is just like hearsay and talk anyway. So I always wonder like how that plays out.
When you do your slander for this one, or your thing in front of it, repeat it.
Yeah.
just in case they didn't hear it the first time.
I'm going to play it literally twice.
Right, exactly.
Well, I'm not an expert, but I can answer a lot of those questions for you.
Well, we can't do that again because the last time that we booked an interview with Curt ended up bringing up the idea of, hey, why don't you interview? Okay. And then, like, we just bumped Curt and made her the guest. So that would actually be really funny if we just switched it up again. Yeah.
You're going to have to talk to me at some point, Arash.
When I was talking to...
But I'm always going to be here with my attorney.
Yeah.
Don't kid yourself.
When I was talking to producer Meg about booking you, like, when that switch happened last time, because that episode will air before this one, so... whoever is obsessively listening to every single show will know the story. Part of me was just thinking, like, honestly, like, I really just want to do this just because it'd be really funny that he brought us another guest, and we ended up booking that one instead.
And if that were to become the norm, I'd just keep bringing somebody. We wouldn't have to go through this at all.
Eventually, it turns into producer Curt.
Yeah, exactly.
Meg loses her
Who's the
job.
guest? Whoever Kurt's bringing. Yeah, good luck with that one. I will have to start digging to the bottom of the barrel. So,
well, Curt, were you born in San Diego?
Born and raised.
It's crazy, like, because before that used to be like a running joke with people when I would meet new people around San Diego. We say, "Oh my God, you're born and raised in San Diego." You know how fucking weird that is. Like, we never meet people that are born and raised here. But I have been finding that within the community, it is not as rare as dealing with a lot of people outside. Like, of course, there's still a lot of people that are moving here, but there are a lot of people in the community that were born and raised here as well.
You are going to run into a lot of people like that, but I want to make it clear from the get-go that I am terminally unique. So,
in regards to all things.
Exactly. Exactly. No, I mean, it's a rarity. It's a transient town. It's always fun to run into people who are born and raised here like me. I still have friends going all the way back to elementary school that I see on a regular basis, and yeah, there's no reason for us to leave. It's beautiful here. Once you get used to the cost of living, which we have, then you stay because of the weather, really. So it was interesting going down and meeting with producer Meg. Oh, that's weird. And Becca today down at coffee. Both of them are pretty much been here their entire lives, so it's having that history, being able to actually communicate about the different things, like, for instance, Gelato Vera, which you were at today. Spent a lot of my high school nights at Gelato Vera, drinking coffee to mask whatever other drugs we were doing.
Well, I guess that would lead to the next question then. At what point did you discover the community?
It's interesting when are talking about the Burn community.
Yeah. As opposed to. Pretty sure it's called Burner Podcast.
Which rabbit hole do you want to go down?
Well, you know what? We're going to go down all of them.
Yay!
We're going to go down all the holes, like, real soon.
Sound like my last date. Anyway, it's kind of one of those things that kind of been a burner the whole time. Just because I hadn't been to Burning Man at the time didn't mean that I wasn't hanging out with burners. So, introduced to the community, I mean, hanging out with people doing circus shows, and that was a fun thing to do several nights a week, and a lot of our friends. had gone to Burning Man, were encouraging us to go.
What year was that?
I
Your first one?
finally decided to pull the trigger on buying a trailer, which was the only reason that I went to Burning Man. Only way that I would go to Burning Man, because camping, who does that?
Weird.
Weird.
Yeah.
So my first year was 2011. 2011 went to Burning Man. It was everything that it is, and the good, the bad. And then came back. I went with some friends from high school, but they were out of San Francisco. So I came back, and about 6 months after the burn, was like missing that bond that is created on Playa. And I was like, I need to get back. I need to get into this community here. I need to find this community, really find this community here. And that's what led me to the Core Project. And started that disastrous path. Kidding.
So at the time that you sort of like, I mean, officially is a silly ass fucking word, but at the time that you kind of like really dove headfirst into what we refer to as the community, like it was already sort of like going. Because I feel like you've been around long enough. You're born and raised in San Diego. You've been around all the fucking weirdos. It looks like long before you discovered this thing that we refer to as the community.
I'd like you to expand upon that. What are you talking about? I've known people that have been going to Burning Man for a long time. I've been friends with people who have been going for a long time. So I would say that right around the beginning of 2012 is when I dove head first into surrounding myself with the San Diego Burning Man community.
And that the experience was after having been to the Playa and coming back and making the intention.
Indeed. Some of our really good friends were responsible for my burn in 2011 in that they had extra tickets that we bought from them. But those were kind of our circus friends. So they've been burners for a while, but we've been hanging out with them for a long time at that point. And yeah, so kind of on the outskirts, it was there, but didn't really dive into it until after my first burn, which was 2011, and so the beginning of 2012.
Yeah, and it's what's interesting to me is that you're probably like watching this movement sort of happening around you, and you're kind of seeing all these people that are, because this is the way that I kind of see the burner community. I feel like it's a collection of a bunch of different communities of weirdos that little by little kind of started to fall under the umbrella of like burnerism, if you will. And then I think there's a lot of people that definitely come in through Burning Man itself, and they're like, oh shit, there's this whole other world that I didn't know existed. But a lot of it was already sort of happening. I feel like that movement of, I mean, I don't know how to describe it. Like, you got the different communities. You got like the polyamorous community, you got the circus performers, you have the artists, you have the scientists who are looking for different places to come up with new ideas. And then little by little, these guys are all just kind of coming together little by little under this umbrella.
If you want to say that all these freaks are coming under this particular umbrella, but I wouldn't say that that's necessarily new, because people were coming into different things like Ren fairs and stuff like that. So yeah, inside of Burners, we do have our circus people. We do have our Ren fair people. And are they the ones that I hang out with? Yeah, we've all kind of come under the same umbrella, but that's not that's not the same as, like, say, all Ren fair people are now burner type things. I think Ren fair people would have a blast at Burning Man because it's the same fucking thing.
Yeah.
At some point.
Yeah, I've had a lot of people mention the Ren fair thing on the show as well, like Sean Natural Nash. And it's something that I didn't even know existed. I knew about the Ren fairs, but I didn't know that there was any sort of like cross-pollination happening.
Sure. And it's so obvious to me, these people, Ren fair people, they go out, they dress up, they do their thing, and they're out wherever they're at, but they create this community, they create a city, as it were, and that's what they experience for those 3-4 days, whatever it is. I'm sure some of them are longer. And yeah, so it seems like a natural thing for them to do, to go to Burning Man, because you already have your costumes and you're already used to being out in the middle of nowhere doing fuck all, so why wouldn't you at that point? Why they all haven't yet, I don't know.
Yeah, let's go work on that. Yeah.
So work on Ren fairs?
Yeah. Like
have
missionaries.
Have fun with that.
Yeah.
I hope that one of the people on your podcast agrees to do that with you. That sounds fantastic.
Yeah, I'm going to recruit you and Natural.
Didn't it sound like Natural had already gone? Is that
No, he had the Ren Fair background as well, and we had a few people. I've had a couple of other guests that I'm blanking on right now, who had mentioned Ren Fair specifically, which I thought was really interesting. But I guess it all makes sense, like you're saying, the costume aspect of it. But I mean, there's so many different things I think about the culture and the community that brings people in. Like some people are attracted to the costumes, some people are attracted to the conversation, some people are attracted to the music. I mean, there's a lot of ways that it fishes people in, if you will.
Absolutely. And if you're attracted to just one of those things and that's what gets you in, that's fantastic. But man, what a diverse community we have. I mean, yeah, at any given point, you could be talking to some sort of a neurologist about something, and at the same time, the plumber is trying to fix this thing underneath somebody's trailer, and you know what I mean? It's all over the board. We're all different, and yet we're all the same, and that's what I really like about it. At one point, we all come together, and whatever our gifts are at that particular moment, we give freely to each other, and you can have any experience you want. So when I go to Burning Man, or when I experience the culture here, the community here, it's everybody. It's anything that we need. It's anything that we want. It's like going online, like in the classifieds or whatever, and say, I have a locksmith question. Of course you're going to get like, oh, you should talk to this person, this person, this person, this person. Because they all exist inside of this community.
Yeah. Well, have you ever thought about what it is, the single sort of like thread that unites everyone?
I have not necessarily put a finger on the one thing that brings us all together. Not at all. Because even if you break it down and get into some sort of like hippie spirituality thing of we were all one, and that's what ties us together. Yeah, I agree, but at the same time, that's not what actually brings us all together.
Yeah, because you'll meet plenty of people also that think that that's just a bunch of woo-woo bullshit.
Absolutely.
Totally don't buy into it.
Absolutely, and there's people that'll take it much further than even I will.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't think that there's one thing that ties us all together. Maybe it's that sense of community, that wanting to have. We've become, as a species, we've become so isolated in that we kind of create our nuclear family, and then we just stay there, and we have our job, and we have our job friends, and it's all become like this small little circle. And at some point, we want to reach back out and get back out and connect with a lot more people than just our tiny little circle.
Yeah. I imagine like part of that comes from, I mean, obviously, neither of us can speak for everybody in the community, but I feel like one of the common stories that a lot of us have is that we grew up potentially surrounded by tons of people, but still feeling totally alone, feeling like there's something different about us. And I wonder, like, if you go back in your history, when you think about, like, at what point in your life, in your youth, did you have the awareness that, wow, I'm fucking weird. I am into shit that the majority of people are not into.
Is that because I realized that, or because I finally listened to what everyone was telling me?
I don't know.
And to pull a page from Ann Coulter, I do speak for all burners. Mm-hmm. Just kidding. And if you missed the Ann Coulter thing, Google it. I started very young, youngest of 6. How do you separate yourself in that kind of pool? And who all have like that dynamic personalities. So how do you set yourself apart? Be fucking weird. Yeah. And
was your family leaning more on the conservative end of things, or were they just sort of all over the place?
I would say that they were all over the place. I think that there was a conservative bend to it. Mom with a lot of religion and guilt.
What religion?
Who cares? And yes, I mean, I think she went from Catholicism to Christianity back to, I think she's back to Catholicism, and it doesn't matter to me. It's still, to me, it's still all weird.
Are you not in contact with them?
I am not in contact with the bulk of my family. There's a couple of people that we like each other's posts occasionally on Facebook. But my immediate family, I don't have any contact with at all. And it's for a lot of different reasons. But as far as the conservative things, some of them, I mean, I've got brothers and sisters that grew up in the 70s and conservative my ass at that point, and now they are complete conservative and whatnot. So, yeah, I would say that there was a conservative bend to the family.
You've watched that kind of swing happen, because that's like one of these. It's such a, again, I don't agree with it, but it's like this funny thing that a lot of conservatives will say is they'll say, you know, if you're young and you're not liberal, you have no heart. If as you get older and you don't become conservative, you have no brain. Like that's like something that I've heard a lot of times from more conservative people, and it seems like you kind of watched that happen to a couple of people in your family.
Absolutely, and I would say that they're just finding a way to justify their fucked up beliefs. The people you're talking to, and my family. But yeah, for everybody to at some point mature enough that we finally get the intelligence that the conservative mindset makes sense versus some sort of liberal mindset. Yeah, whatever. I think you just drank too much of the Kool-Aid as you were going through the process.
What was high school like?
It was kind of that same blend for me. So going through high school, I'm in advanced courses, I'm in AP classes, all that sort of stuff. And at the same time, I'm going through this huge goth phase in my life. So I've got a full face of makeup. I'm wearing women's tights. I'm wearing, pointy boots. My hair is to the ceiling and all that sort of stuff. And then I'm sitting in class with these people who are conservative. They're obviously well on their way to college and doing that typical lifestyle thing. So it was kind of the mix of both worlds, finding a way to relate with these people and then still find a way at the same time to stand out from everybody that I could really, and kind of get my own path moving forward. So I don't know. I don't know that a lot of stuff has changed. For me, high school that part of it was really, really fun. And there's a reason, that there are a lot of people from high school that still are like, Curt, man,
The goth thing, that's really, I'm so glad you brought that up, because I feel like that's like one of the questions about high school that I never got quite answered. And I imagine it's like with anything, you find a community and they accept you and it blends in. Like, what was it about like the goth community in high school that took you in, that absorbed you?
I really do believe that a lot of it had to do with standing out, doing something different. But we're talking about really a different era in the 80s in growing up. I mean, what was the next thing? What was the thing that we could do different? Grow your hair long and smoke weed, or
this is a pre-hot topic,
guards, or that sort of thing. Yes, very much so. So how did I want to get into that? The idea of separating, feeling like I am terminally unique, right? And wanting to show everybody else that I'm comfortable being different than. And as that kind of new wave became more popular, and kind of some of the normal kids starting to go in that direction, you just take it a step further and a step further and a step further, to kind of isolate yourself. And then it was very music driven at the time as well. Very passionate about some of the darker music and the edgier stuff.
Did you at this point have an idea of what you want to do after you're done with high school, what your future was going to be like? Because you're taking the advanced placement classes. Correct me if I'm wrong, I'm imagining the attraction to that was that you're in a class where you're not sort of like being scrutinized because you're interested in learning? Or was that sort of like pressure just to get higher grades and finish school faster?
I don't think that there was pressure to get higher grades. I mean, I wasn't taking AP for anything for me per se. That's just where I kept going. I was smart enough and could learn fast enough to keep up and do those things. And I still love learning. And I do have the capacity to take in things really, really fast. So it wasn't like a goal-oriented thing. It was just where they kept putting me. There, at that point, even when there's this good possibility that all I really want to do is give you all the finger, in high school and now. But in high school, it's not like they're going to let me go back to like remedial math or whatever just because. You know what I mean? If I test out at that, fine. But I can't and I won't and I didn't, so they keep putting you in these advanced courses. Now, in high school at the same time, I decided that I was going to become a hairdresser. So I was going to high school during the day, beauty school at night.
You go that young to beauty school?
You can, absolutely. Absolutely. It doesn't get you out of high school. Yeah. It gives you a lot of credits, but you still have to take the prerequisites that exist. So yeah, I went that young and thrived inside of beauty school, finished high school, and then was on my path to being a hairdresser, being a cosmetologist. So did I know that that's what I was going to do for the next 12 years of my life? And even still to this day, I do hair, but was that like, I'm going to be a hairdresser when I grow up? No. And quite honestly, I still don't know what I'm going to do when I grow up. When does that happen?
I have it on my calendar. It looks like on 2026 is your deadline.
Is that my deadline?
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that's growing up or if that's death.
It's in February. I don't know why it's in February. I don't know. Somebody sent me an email. I just put it in. Kurt's growing up in 2016.
That's 16 or 26?
2026, I believe.
Whatever.
I have to pull up my Google Calendar. I'm not sure.
None of it's going to happen. So
we're all going to hell in a handbasket before that anyway.
Maybe, or, whatever. I guess I'm all grown up when somebody else is paying for my retirement home.
Yeah. So, well, I mean, that would involve, I imagine, having some kids. Which you're not going to do.
No, society, they owe me.
So I'm intrigued by this because, I mean, you're obviously a creative and intelligent person, and you decided hair. Something about hair caught your attention. What was it?
All sorts of things. I'm a very business-minded man. I like to think in business. I like to talk in business. I like all of it. When you talk about meditation, I meditate in business. The ideas, the concept of it, and how to move that forward on a regular basis. Whether it's my business or your business, or I like getting in other people's business.
Instead of a liquor store, you're like hair.
Well,
that's what's going to be.
But it's art at that point, right? So I'm doing very creative things with my hair at that time. And when I went to beauty school, look, man, I was going as a way to, you get this license and you have this thing. It's a trade, right? So maybe I could travel Europe and I could do cut hair here and there on the streets or whatever it was to pay my way backpacking through Europe.
Did you do that?
God, no.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah. Go to beauty school.
Yeah.
I didn't end up doing that, no. So I went, and it was one of the things that I was doing. I was already doing my makeup. I was already doing my hair. I was already essentially doing my nails and all of the things. And so I wanted to get this license, and I could just do this as a thing whenever. I've never let the license expire and do this thing. It just turned out that I was really good at it, and really started to see the art in it. And once you get kind of that art passion inside of hair, I don't care if it's hair or clothing or painting or whatever it is that you're doing, writing even. I got addicted to it and took it. I took it far, and young.
That's definitely. I'm certain you weren't like the only one or anything like that, but I imagine it was a little bit harder to be on that path when it comes to pressures from society in that era versus like the way it is now. I mean, I've watched in the past 10 years things like that becoming more acceptable to mainstream society than they were 10 years ago.
Are you talking about the idea of cosmetology or
the idea of a man being a hairdresser and cosmetologist? Yeah, going to beauty school.
God, man, there's different pressures as you're going through, right? So I sign up for whatever group is going to pay for my beauty school. And so that's done. They're going to do that. They push me through. The wait list is like 2-3 years.
What is this group that's paying for beauty school?
I'm just going to forget the name of it.
Okay.
But it's some sort of government or state funded something. And,
okay.
Yeah. So it gets pushed through in 1 year, and I'm like, well, this was for when I got out of high school.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what's up? And they're like, well, you're a minority. And I was like,
You are?
At that, for the business, as you were talking, as a male.
Okay.
Absolutely a minority. So they have to keep some of their funding, they have to keep the minorities going. And male at the time was it. So that was really cool. I go to my parents and I'm like, I'm going to beauty school.
Yeah.
And mom defers to dad, and dad's like, you ain't fucking doing that. and he doesn't stop there. He went on, I think, for years, but until I started doing his hair, and then he's like, you're pretty good at that. Yeah, whatever, dad. But he's like, I ain't paying for that. And I'm like, you don't have to. I'm going, and it's paid for, and it's kind of a done deal. Mm. So you've got that from the older generation, from my dad for sure. Like, that's unacceptable. And then I've got it from the group that's paying for it. That's like, right on, you're a minority, go for it. But once you're in to that community, I mean, like, for me at the time, who are you looking at? It's more acceptable now, more acceptable then. You know, that's kind of the height of Paul Mitchell. You know, where they're really booming at the time, and that's a couple of male hairdressers really going forward, and so I don't think that the industry was necessarily just for women and looked down upon, especially once you were inside of it. Societal around it, I kind of didn't care because I was in it, and I was in it all the way, and so there was this. If you're talented, there's this pressure to succeed for sure, but that would be in anything, wouldn't it?
Yeah. There's definitely a running theme with the way that your mind operates, which I can best narrow down to says who. Like, and it's interesting because, of course, like, my background is I come from a Middle Eastern background, growing up in the Iranian community with the BMWs and the Mercedes, and you're either a dentist or a fucking engineer or some shit like that. Like, there's a very strict linear pattern, and a lot of like ethnic communities have that. And my observation has been a lot of quote unquote mainstream Western society has that as well. But it looks like from a young age you already sort of had that thought process of framing things differently. Like, okay, well, I understand if you look at this mainframe, like, yeah, this doesn't. You're always kind of sort of asking, like, okay, says who? Like, this information, like, this is not something that you can apply to this kind of person, and then your response is going to be, well, says who? Because if you look at it from somebody else's angle, then you can apply that. If you look at it from this other perspective, it could be something completely different.
It's something that I still do to this day, and that's spend a lot of time thinking about what's wrong with the construct. Mm-hmm. And from an early age, exactly. It's been kind of fuck the construct. Why? Yeah. Tell me why. Tell me why I can or cannot, and I will probably prove you wrong, or at least give it an attempt to do that. And when I look back, even back into what you're talking about with going into cosmetology school, it's still about construct. Society, we're supposed to do these things. I guess that I've been blessed with the freedom to be able to explore that. Mm-hmm. And even still to this day have that kind of freedom to explore the shattering of the construct. Yeah. As the normal society sees it.
No, it's definitely, I mean, that's something that fascinates me, because I always wonder, like, how much of that is nature or nurture. You know, like, if you look back on your parents, like, we don't know enough about your parents. We don't have enough time to get into their psychology as well, but it looks like your mom kind of fell in line, and your dad kind of sounds like he did, but then he kind of, like, broke out of it eventually. Like, do you look at your parents and say, I got this from them, but they just maybe grew up in a different generation and they didn't apply the, for lack of a better description, awareness, intelligence to their life path? Or was it something where at one point you sort of looked around with your family and you're like, yeah, I'm fucking different than all of you guys. I'm the only one that thinks this way.
I touched on that earlier about how do I separate myself? How do I become, when I'm the youngest of six, how do I become seen, right? And I believe that several of my siblings fell under that idea of construct that my parents were definitely pushing. But there's pluses and minuses, but here's the plus side to being the youngest of six. They're fucking tired, man. Like you've got this, like, I can do whatever I want, and they've already seen it all, they've already heard it all, whatever. So now they just stop paying attention. Yeah. Like whatever, if they did this with one of them and then they tried it a different way with the next one, they're like, they're all gonna do it. Fuck it, it's done. So really, I felt like there was plenty of love there, but I really felt like I got away with whatever I wanted to do. So I pushed what I wanted to do, and I don't think that they controlled that very much. I absolutely think that both of my parents would have loved to see me go to college, create something different career-wise, whether it be all of the normal things, doctor, attorney, or whatever it may be.
You feel it's more nurture. It's more your upbringing rather than something that you just inherently had in your system when you came out of the factory.
I think I had the freedom to explore whatever was inside of me when I came out of the factory. And I don't think that everybody gets that opportunity. When you come from a smaller family, when you get into that small nuclear family, if you're like a single child or you have one other sibling, I don't think that you have a lot of freedom to do that because there's more eyes on you. So is it because that's how I'm built? Or was it because that's how they wanted me to think? And I think it's more how I'm built, and then having the freedom, not having that part of it knocked out of me.
Yeah. It seems like that experience, having gone through all of this and observing yourself going through this, awakening at a much younger age than the rest of us have the opportunity to do, has made you sort of more compassionate to the difficulties of a lot of people that don't get to break out of that. It seems like that's why you're sort of always asking, why this? Why does everybody have to do this?
I'm curious about it for myself, but I'm also curious about it for you. Yeah. You know what I mean? So like, I feel like I've been given this particular freedom to break out during childhood. Well, Arash, have you been given that freedom to do whatever it is that you want to do, and are you taking full advantage of that, or is there something in childhood? Is there something about the parents or the society that you grew up in? Is there still something there that's stopping you from exploring that all the way? Yeah.
I mean, for me, culturally, there was quite a bit of pressure to fall in line with the construct. I am a disappointment to my father in every conceivable way.
Right on.
I mean, just out of respect, like, I'm kind of waiting until he dies before I suck my first cock. Like, that's the one thing I'm holding off on.
That's it?
Yeah, that's the one. I feel like that's the one thing that's, like, keeping him going, like, well, at least he's not gay.
What if that's the one thing that kills him, though? I mean, then you can just get on with being gay.
Fuck, well, let's get to work.
Hello. How long is this podcast?
Oh, don't worry, it'll last 5 minutes.
Sound like my ex-wife.
Do you feel because I've had conversations with you, and I've seen like status updates from you and stuff where, like, you do have frustration about people falling into the construct. And I guess that's what I wonder, is that on one hand you're very aware of this gift that you've been given, but on the other hand it still does frustrate you when you watch people just blindly follow.
Frustrate me, man. A lot of the times I'm that why thing. I want to ask you why. Like, why are you falling into that construct? What, having a conversation with somebody and then seeing them still maintain construct, even though there's a piece of them that they've talked to me about or that they've expressed interest in getting out of that construct, but they just keep staying in it and keep staying in it. So frustration, or is it just kind of like poking at it? I'm still constantly poking it at construct, and whether things come up in my world and some of my posts, even though it sounds like I'm poking at somebody else, maybe I'm really poking at me, and wording it in a way that maybe gets other people to think a little bit about, are you happy with where you're at inside of that particular construct, the path that you're on? I don't know. I had a friend, client, friend, whatever. She, very, very intelligent woman. Family, had lots of money, all that sort of thing. And the whole goal was college, law school, the whole bit. Graduates, top of her class, immediately making the six figures, in her first internship before she's even out of college. Like, she's just really doing what family wanted, and this is, of course, what she thought she wanted because she was built all the way up to it. Gets into it, gets breast cancer, and finally, like, stops for a second. Like, maybe that idea that the whole world kind of stops around you and you're still kind of spinning and you're looking at it and you're like, oh, well, this isn't me anymore. Maybe it never was her. And it took all the way up to that to finally see it. Singer, songwriter, has books out now, like living like this hippie lifestyle, and very successful at it, as we all knew that she would be, whatever she puts her mind to. But it's way
check from the universe,
way out of the construct, right?
Yeah.
So even I grew up on this planet, so I have construct built into me, right? So a lot of the times when I'm poking at what it seems like I'm poking at other people, I think that I'm reminding myself that I don't want to fall into that construct, even though it could be really, really easy. It seems.
Yeah. No, I think that's definitely I feel like we hit really on the head. A big chunk of what drives you is poking at the construct. A lot of what you create, a lot of the business that you're interested in, a lot of your history is, I'm going to find a way. Because you know what, I remember a little while ago, you guys had a situation. And by the way, for listeners, I probably should have said this. You're the owner of Frock U. You guys had a situation where there was somebody broke into your car and stole your keys, and you were dealing with police officers who were super helpful. And you had a status update about how this is a construct that exists within our community. There are a lot of people that are like, fuck the police. A lot of the hardcore hippies that like have this like just blind allegiance to the fuck the police tribe. And you made a very strong effort to communicate publicly to people that this is bullshit and we shouldn't do this, because I had an amazing experience with them, really trying to help.
So why?
So there's a contrast within us as well.
Why at any point would I want to assume that everybody if somebody rapes somebody at Burning Man, why would I want somebody outside of Burning Man to say that everybody at Burning Man is a rapist? Well, we'd all go, well, that's not true, right? So you get, at that particular point, you get a cop or two that they're not really doing their job well by killing innocent people, but they're not doing it, and so all of a sudden now it's like a back to fuck the police, and I don't buy into that. I believe that in that vein, that people should be prosecuted for the crimes as they commit them, including police officers who have some authority. But to say that now all of them are bad or all of them are evil, that doesn't make any sense. I don't want people thinking that of me. I don't want people thinking that of the cops. I don't want people thinking that of themselves.
Like, is that any different than racism? I mean, just grouping an entire group of people together and saying they're all this way because of what I believe of them to be true.
I think that touches on a piece of racism, but if we start digging deeper into that, and that could be a much longer podcast about that, but it's a lot of racism has to deal with privilege or lack thereof privilege. So if you were to say that me saying fuck the police is a lot like racism, I can't take that word to it at all.
How about bigotry?
It's a tough one. What was that phrasing that I used the other day?
Bigoted
appropriation.
Bigoted
Bigoted
appropriation. which is an interesting conversation to have, but it's going to be a long conversation if we get into it. But bigoted appropriation. So, for instance, saying like that whatever the cops are going through right now because everybody's against the cops is kind of like being a black man, during segregation or slavery or whatever. That's bigoted appropriation because they do not.
They don't equate, for sure.
At all.
For sure.
So to start using those types of words with it, can't do it. I don't think bigotry or any of that falls into it. I think that we should not lump all people in one thing into something. But I learned that, I learned that at an early age because all male hairdressers are gay, right?
Yeah. Oh, you're not.
Sorry to ruin your night.
Darn. Sorry, Dad.
Sorry, Dad.
No cocksucking happening on this one.
I'll get you. So yeah, you start to learn that stereotype really quick. From me, so even before I started going into hair, the makeup and the whole bit wearing women's clothing, all that sort of stuff. Yeah, I'm gay. I'm like, why?
Yeah.
Why would you lump me into that just because of that? But anyway, I can't put those words to it when it comes to that.
Sure.
But I don't mind being outspoken. And, actually, fuck you. If you want to lump all police as bad, fuck you. Can we go after the ones that aren't doing their job right? Yeah, please, let's do.
Yeah.
And let's call maybe on their parts, the individual parts, maybe there's a racist tone in their work. But I wouldn't say that necessarily this group of people saying fuck the police, that they're being racist against the police.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's go back here to sort of where you are. So you're working as a hairdresser for 12 years, you said?
I'm still pretty much working as a hairdresser. It's not what I do to make my money at all, but I can't walk away from the art.
Yeah. At what point did you sort of make the transition away from it being your primary source of income?
I got divorced.
Mm-hmm.
When I got divorced, I sold my salon to my ex, and I just wanted to change. So I tried to go work for somebody else in a salon, and I'm just not hireable. I can't work for anybody else. I have to work for myself because I'll get fired. Yeah. It's just that's what's going to happen.
That doesn't shock me for some reason.
It doesn't shock many, right? It used to be a really funny punchline, and everyone's like, uh-huh.
Yeah. You got a new job, huh? Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Let's see how long this lasts.
So I just don't. I'm self-employed, and I'm going to be self-employed, chances are, for the rest of it. So I tried that, and it just wasn't working out. And I started dating my business partner now. I started dating her and seeing the profit margin in vintage clothing. I already had a passion for it. I was shopping thrift when I was a kid, but now to see the business side of it, fascinating. Your normal markup is like 2.5 on retail, and this is you're buying a belt for $25 and selling it for $75. Yeah, I see that, and that works for me. Plus, it keeps me passionate about fashion and history, and then the hunt of it all. So it was an easy transition for me to go into that from a business point of view and from a passion point of view.
Yeah. And it recently dawned on me that it's also a more conscientious way of developing your style, because these are things that have sort of already been made, and you're not maybe contributing to more child slavery, the new stuff that you can buy at Macy's tomorrow versus getting something that's already been made and
Let's
reusing it.
Really, really clear. Small hands do better work. Which
you're right. We do have to put that warning again at the beginning.
Right. Is there a green aspect to the business?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Is there a not so green aspect to me cutting the hair that's growing naturally out of your head? Okay, whatever. But as far as retail is concerned, is there a green aspect to it? Sure. Recycling, it is, absolutely. That's one of the bonuses of doing the job, is then I get to tout how green I am. Whee! But it's pretty much the passion for the history and the markup.
Yeah, and the markup, really.
And the markup. Let's be honest about that.
But what year was this when you got into this business?
You know, my business partner, Kristen, when we were doing thrift store shopping when we were kids, she turned it into a business in her early 20s. I got divorced right around my 30. I'm now fucking old. So that would have been, what, 2000?
Okay. So
2001, somewhere in that ballpark. That's when it started to change for me in my mind. Frock U's been open for 13 years now, and we were probably screwing around with it on online eBay or selling out of our garage for a year.
So this was kind of around the same time that you went to your first burn.
No, that was 2011 was my first burn.
I missed one.
Yeah.
Fuck, it took you another 10 years? Jesus.
To go to Burning Man after that? Yeah, I was busy.
Yeah.
Not really. I didn't want to camp.
Yeah.
It's funny, but it's serious.
Yeah. What was it about camping that was such a turn off?
Camping for me has and still is kind of a cabin really close to the woods, preferably with a jacuzzi.
Yeah.
So that idea of like tent and like I didn't have it.
Yeah.
I'm better at it now. I do it now. But I really didn't feel like I was a camper.
Yeah.
Burner Podcast.
All right. So quick little break. You know how like the past like few episodes I've mentioned the Midway project, and I kept trying to pronounce producer Meg and her brother Paul's project correctly, and finally Paul, I love you, Paul. Paul, who is in charge of the project, corrected me on the pronunciation. It is pronounced Dr. Haya's Balls Boardwalk Soul Exchange. Dr. Haya's Balls Soul Exchange. That's one of the Midway projects that is coming out of San Diego. The other one that I'm working on, a different one, is the Wonderlust Arcade. It is a forced perspective room which houses arcade with arcade games, burner fight arcade games. It's pretty cool. We just got our Kickstarter up with the little video that was thrown together by yours truly. Go to facebook.com/burningmanmidway and find what Midway project your city, your town, your region is working on, and go lend a hand. They will be super appreciative of having you. If you are new, if you've never been to Burning Man before, trust me, go get involved. You will have a much more fulfilling experience out on the playa. Some people do say you shouldn't take on, or it's better not to take on responsibility your first burn. I disagree. I took on mine. It kicked my ass, but I don't regret a second of it. Believe me, you will not regret it. And, of course, go help out. Facebook.com/burningmanmidway. So pretty cool. If you're a fan of Thievery Corporation and you happen to be in the San Diego area, there is going to be a free Thievery Corporation show at the Del Mar Racetrack. That is going to be... go to Del Mar... I had the date up here and I lost it. The Del Mar Racetrack, they do like free concerts every Friday during racing season. So go check that out. There's a bunch of free shows, and Thievery Corporation is coming up at the end of this month or early next month. So if you just go to like the Del Mar Racetrack's website, you'll be able to find that information. And there's of course this other very cool event that I'm looking forward to, EternalGatherings.com. Eternal is August 21st through August 23rd. It is also in Southern California. There's going to be all kinds of music, house and tech house, all the typical stuff, your hippies, your camps, your booms and the bass and the DJs and all that. So go check that out, EternalGatherings.com. Let's go back to Curt.
Welcome home.
I never had any experience doing it. Parents didn't take me camping. Like, it just wasn't a thing. So I resisted it for a long time, and I'd rather go to Paris.
Yeah.
I'd rather go to a tropical island. So I enjoy the people. I obviously they're my friends, and enjoy being with them. So tell me again, you go to the middle of fucking nowhere and do what?
Yeah.
For 7 days, 10 days, whatever it is that you're there for. It took me some time to wrap my head around actually going.
Yeah. So when somebody asks you that question, what's the answer? Why are you doing this?
Why am I doing this?
Yeah.
I don't know what else to do.
And then again.
Right? I do it. I do it for the community. I do it for what I learn about myself when I go, the connections that I make with different people when I'm there. When I look at my life now and some of the deepest, truest friends in my life right now, we're burners. We do festivals and we do this thing, and just, man, you never really know how you're going to connect with somebody until you're there and you're in it. And that's some of the biggest stuff for me. Why do I keep going? Also, is the art. I'm a builder. I like to build things. I like to burn things. And being able to have that kind of large scale outlet is really fun. And then the community that you build inside of that, and the community you destroy inside of that, it's all lovely, right? And being able to process that information whichever way it comes, or as it comes. So I'm at this last burn, right? And I have this connection with Bella. You can bleep that out if she doesn't want it there. With Bella at our camp, and we don't have anything. We know of each other. We haven't really connected. We don't really know anything, right? One day, and I think it was Sunday. I think it was right before Temple Burn. For some reason, we sat down next to each other and we actually started talking, and then it went deep, and then we both kind of shared and got deeper and had this bond, right? I feel ultimately connected to Bella now, and I would have never seen that coming had I not been with her on Playa.
That was going to be my question. What happens, not necessarily even on the Playa, but just at any festival? What's different about the heightened senses that create connections for you that might not happen here down the street in North Park?
I think that a lot of people let go of construct. When you get out there and you no longer have your phone. How many times have you looked at your phone today? Oh, God. Right.
Yeah, it's like cocaine addiction.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Do you have any cocaine?
I might. I got some meth, but so much in the cocaine.
I like ketamine anyway.
Put something in my nose.
So we were going somewhere before that.
What's different? And you were saying that you let go of construct.
I think that people let go of construct. You get out there, you don't have your vehicle that you can actually drive around and get away and isolate inside of your own particular music. When I'm walking around these festivals and stuff, I don't see people with their headphones on. They're not isolating. People are staring at their phones, but if they're staring at their phones because they can't have any connection, they're probably frying, right? So
yeah,
that's cool too, however they want to do their trip. But I think that we let go of construct, and I think that everybody, even if they're not conscious of letting go of construct, what do we do now? So in the same way, say you and I, let's go sit at Graveyard Park. That's the one right next to your house.
Yeah.
Graveyard Park. And you and I just sit there. No phones, no nothing. Let's just sit there until we start talking. We will eventually start talking. We're going to have to talk about stuff, or we may or may not, right? But chances are that we will start talking about something. And you and I might not have had that opportunity to talk unless we sat down with all the distractions, spirit, all the construct, as it were. And God, man, distractions are a construct at this moment in time to me. So yeah, I think that's one of the things that allows us to connect deeper with people.
What would you say to someone who would say that you are essentially unplugging from one construct and plugging into a different one, though?
Sure. Absolutely. Which one feels better to you?
Yeah.
And what I would constantly do inside of that conversation is I would keep putting it back. Absolutely. When we start talking about this particular community, have we not created our own construct? What is a burner? I was reading the other day, burners.me I do not like. Burners.me I do not like. But they posted something that was about further.
Yeah. Didn't Robot Heart?
It's Robot Heart, right? Yeah. And they were like, it's already creating its own fashion. And I was like, okay, you're full of shit, right? Like, click on it. Yeah, they're full of shit. Like, oh, look at all these people who look like burners. Yeah. So it's this festival culture. Is how we dress or how we look, is that not become construct as well as the norms that are putting on their 3-piece and going to their office job or whatever it is? I would have to agree with that to a certain degree. Which one do you want to be a part of? Yeah. The construct that we've kind of created, or the construct that was created for us?
Yeah. Remember that when you were a goth kid, similar thing. I mean, to the outsider, you guys all look the same.
Absolutely.
It's kind of like reggae music. Like, if you're not a reggae music fan, like, you think it all sounds the exact same. If you're not a techno, you think it's all the same.
It's like thinking about, like, what if you asked me what my favorite techno is? I'm like, yeah. It all sounds the same. Like, they've got it broken down into 8 million different subsets right now.
I like the one with the kick drums.
Yeah, right.
Super weird. There's like a martial arts sample somewhere in there.
But sure, yeah. Did we all look the same? Were we all... Well, they labeled it as punk, and you say that to somebody who's actually a skinhead versus somebody who's, like, doing their goth thing. It's like, nothing like that guy. But outside of the interior, anybody looking at us is going to think that we look the same. And then kind of the same with burners when we're walking around. Like, I need to put some costumes together. Like, wear something or wear nothing. No, once you leave your particular camp or your particular mirror, nobody cares, right? Because even I think we see ourselves as, well, we're all the same. I want to know more about you than just what you look like. And I think that's what sometimes takes it deeper as well.
Do you think that you will ever be a part of a construct in which you're not serving the role as a disruptor?
So would you say that inside of a kind of a communal living thing, whether it's a larger farm or it's a smaller house where, say, 8 people and it's like this communal group effort thing, wouldn't you say that inside of that those 8 people are coming together to create kind of a construct of this is how we do it, and then one of those 8 people are like, you know what, I need to go do something else, or I'm whatever it may be, and those 7 people have to bring somebody else in to keep this thing.
I want to go be a hairdresser.
Are they? Yeah. Sure. Good luck. If you bring the person you bring in, you bet that you're going to try to plug them into the construct that you've created. Is that making sense?
Sure.
So don't we all create these constructs? So do I want to be part of a construct that I'm not constantly trying to disrupt? God, man, am I trying to disrupt it just for disruption's sake? Or am I trying to keep poking? And is that poking for me or against you? Well, you take it how you want, but chances are, and if you talk to me about it, it's probably for me to make sure that I'm still where I want to be inside of that. So yeah, I can be inside of construct because I think I've created my own construct. And I think that you and I have these agreements that all form kind of a construct at some point. Yeah, if I don't like our agreement between you and me, and I poke at it, am I just being a disruptor inside of that? Yeah. I don't know. Or does it give us something to chew on?
The discussion should never stop, I guess, is the healthiest approach. I think that's sort of like, for me, for example, this is why I feel comfortable in this community, which is I feel like I'm not going to be attacked for asking questions. It's kind of supported and celebrated to some extent. Whereas, like, there are a lot of communities where when you ask questions, they're like, you need to get the fuck out. Like, for example, your mom's community with Christianity or Catholicism.
Right. Let me ask you this. You went to your first burn this past year. And in leading up to going to that burn, you were asking the community a lot of questions. And some people were gracious and answered yours, and some other assholes were just poking you the entire time. Isn't that kind of the same thing? I mean, you're saying you can ask questions in this community, but without feeling like, get the fuck out. Maybe people didn't tell you to get the fuck out, but they sure as busted your balls, right?
I guess the difference is that I felt like there was enough. Part of the character of this community is that you have to have tough skin. Or at least it would be nice to have tough skin.
Right.
You got to toughen the fuck up. and not get, and I sort of already had some background with that from being such an outcast so much of my life. And then having the frat boy background, like, all right, you're going to get hazed over here. And I feel like there's a lot of community. I think sort of that's something that attracts me here, is that you can toughen up, and then that again was something that you'll be celebrated for, because some of those people who are poking me, like yourself, I feel like me never. I feel like that the relationship has changed because you saw that I continued to stick around forever. For example, one of the other things that I sort of observed is that with any community, you're going to have that. There's never been a community anywhere in history which doesn't have, different groups within it. Some that are maybe saying like, "Come on in," other people that are poking you, and I don't know. I just kind of feel like all of that is kind of celebrated over here. And I think that being able to develop a tough skin is a part of the experience. So for me, a lot of times when I see new people coming in, you know what? Here's an example. On the playa, I happen to be standing next to the one of the many bad advice booths. Mm-hmm. And this very sweet-looking hippie with dreadlocks walks up and asks, "Do you know how I can get to so-and-so camp?" And I don't think he realized he stopped at the bad advice booth. So they say, "All right, here's what you're going to do. You're going to walk down over here in a six. You're going to make a left. You're going to take that all the way down to the front entrance. From there, you're going to leave Burning Man. You're going to drive." And it's just like continue giving this long, elaborate description of how to go back to LA. And this poor bastard just kind of stood there staring, and he got really irritated, and he just stormed off. And I'm kind of looking at him like, do you not realize where you stopped? Like, that's kind of like part of the character.
Do you not realize where you stopped? Do you not realize where you showed up?
Yeah.
Like, welcome to BRC, right? Yeah. At that point. Yeah, but I mean,
the poking is a part of it. I feel like, toughen the fuck up.
Absolutely. Does the hazing, in your experience of it, does the hazing, did that teach you anything other than get a thicker skin? Or is that part of the community? Did you get anything out of the hazing? Did you get anything out of the snark? Did you get anything out of the poking? Was there anything that inside of it that you actually took from it other than skin toughened now?
Yeah, I think for me, it kind of brought my awareness to another thing that I kind of feel like connects a lot of us in this community together, which is like when something is presented to you, are you going to look at it as just, man, I don't like this and I'm going to run away from it? Or are you able to just look at it as whether it is pleasant or unpleasant? And if you can conclude that whether it is pleasant or unpleasant, but you're still gaining something out of it, then I kind of feel like this is a good place for you. I think that is an example of why psychedelics are popular in our community. Because with psychedelics, for example, you can't go into psychedelics with demanding a guarantee that it's going to be fun, because you may have a miserable experience, but it's still going to teach you something. So, some of the poking did actually teach me like, oh, you know what? I should get better at doing this kind of thing. Like, I had a situation on the playa, for example, where my awareness was brought to it was me and Kristen and Boone, and like the ground was all sort of like muddy and jacked up from the rain. And Kay said like, all right, well, why don't you and Boone get to like hammering this thing down? And I asked out loud, like, okay, well, should we maybe get like a piece of wood and then kind of put that down and step on top of it? And then like that way it'll start kind of flattening out. And then Boone's like, he keeps saying shit like that. And I was like, fuck, wait, what am I doing? What am I doing? And in that, I had to spend some time meditating on that. And I realized that what was coming from me is that I was a lack of confidence on my end, thinking that I have to keep asking, sort of like, is this okay? Can I do this? Is this okay? But something that's very common and prevalent in our community, which is like, you don't keep asking, just fucking do it. Just get up, pick up the hammer and fucking do it. If it works, great. If not, you're not going to get attacked. And that is one of the things, like I learned, for example, camping. I didn't grow up camping either. And it was like, all right, one of the reasons that I just never even tried was that there was this fear that I was totally unaware of, just programmed into my psyche, that if I fuck up, the guys are going to make fun of me, and then I'm going to lose masculinity points. So I'm just not even going to try. Whereas on the playa or within our community, there is that sense of like, yeah, give it a try. Okay, you didn't do it right. Let me show you how to do it right. So those are lessons that I got out of it from the poking.
So you did it wrong, and somebody said, "Let me show you how to do it right."
Generally, that's been
They're
my
doing
experience.
it wrong. I just watch you do it again.
Yeah.
And watch you do it again. You'll learn. You will learn.
Yeah.
And that's one of the humorous things about being on playa is like, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. How do you do it wrong?
How do you do it right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So is my tent staked down? I'll let you know on Sunday when we're leaving. Yeah. If it's still here, you probably did it all right. You know? Yeah, and that might suck for you Wednesday when it's not there anymore, but, you know, you'll learn how to do something else at that point.
Curt's not giving anybody fish.
He absolutely will. Absolutely will.
You're not even going to give me a fucking fishing pole. You're just like, no.
You can have fish. I'm not going to teach you how to cook it.
Yeah.
Good luck, folks.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, next time on playa, I'm totally bringing you fish.
I don't actually eat seafood.
Like I said, figure it out, fucker.
I'm gonna have to gift that to somebody. Can you bring me a steak? Like, that'd be awesome. I mean, like an edible one, not like one for my tent. I already got those.
Right, like, but the whole cow would be a problem.
The whole man.
Starting to get picky about your gifts.
Yeah. Oh, I'm not begging.
I'm still giving.
Did you hear about the guy that cooked the whole fucking lamb on the fire from the man?
I did not.
It's pretty rad.
Did you have any of it?
No, Bob came back and he was like bragging about it. I was so upset that I missed it because lamb would have been amazing.
Yeah, or it might have gotten you really sick.
This is also true.
Did Bob have any of it?
Yes. He didn't get sick.
He didn't get sick.
Not that I know of.
I also think Bob makes things up. That's part of keeping that like masculine voice you were talking about. I think he has a lot invested in that.
Yeah.
That's Jim Bob Robs, for anyone that doesn't know.
We'll bring Bob on the show next to defend himself. So you did the same thing that a lot of people get into, but my understanding of it is, of course, you started doing it before I showed up. That you got kind of the too much volunteerism thing, which is what producer Meg was saying as an example of like what happens when you're just like diving into doing work for the community. So I'm assuming that happened after your first visit to the playa.
She called it the dark side of volunteering.
Yeah.
The dark side of building community, as it were. Look, I don't think that this particular community or any community that you're, just because you're in it or you feel that you're accepted in it, that you're insulated from people thinking you're doing it wrong, right? You can't please everybody all the time. You never will be able to. So that's what happens. You get involved. You try to do your best. You work really hard. You put heart, soul, and everything into it. And there's still somebody going, you're doing it wrong. And that's that gets difficult because sometimes that costs you friendships that you thought you had, connections that you thought you had made. And maybe you did. And just maybe they're short-lived. That cross as we go, maybe that was just short-lived and on your way, and you learn what you need to learn from that and you keep going. But just because you're in this community and I'm in this community doesn't mean I have to fucking like you. It doesn't mean you and I have to get along, you know?
Yeah, I have cousins I don't get along with. I've
got moms I don't get along with.
Yeah,
I have dads. Plural to not make it specific. So the same thing happens inside a community. You do your damnedest and you build it and you really try to A, get mission accomplished, B, one of the biggest missions is build community, and then C, like make sure everybody's happy. Well, you can't, and sometimes you lose your own happiness inside of that, I really believe. And when you start losing that, you probably start losing your ability to build, and you start deconstructing instead of building up.
Did you have that experience?
Absolutely.
What happened? At what point did you start feeling like I'm not feeling fulfilled of the amounts that I'm putting in?
I would say that that's a wrong take on it, or at least a wrong way to say that.
Sure.
When I got into the 2012 project, building these projects, that just up. After the 2012 burn, I was asked and absolutely agreed to lead the 2013 project. And it was
core project.
The core project, as it were. Large scale art, I really don't care what title you put on it, but yes, it was the San Diego Core Project for 2013.
I guess the point is for listeners that might be from somewhere else that aren't familiar with it, this was a regional. Basically, it's San Diego's contribution.
Yes, when they were still doing core projects.
Yeah.
This was 13 was the last year that they did core projects. And I like to think that I had a little part in destroying that for everybody. But you go through and you build, and you've got all this pressure. You've got finances to do. You got teams to lead. You've got to get this project up. You got to get this project out, and then you got to burn it down and get everybody home in one piece. And not that I'm responsible for what piece you come back in. Radical self-reliance, fucker. But you build this community, and hopefully you've moved it forward a notch. And I think that so many people, this was the third year in a row that almost the same people were working on the projects, just had put in too much, too long, too hard, and I lost a little bit of my charming charisma and got a little bit back into the heavy snark. Just get your fucking shit done. Don't cry. Get your shit done, right? Yeah. And I think that attitude came out a little bit more, and I was tired, and all sorts of things were happening with me, and I'm absolutely responsible for how I brought that. But I think other people in the community, we were worn out. We were done. We were tired, and some things suffered inside of that, really close personal things, and then some other distant things that I thought that we had a connection that there's a couple of people that neither one of us want to see each other. Yeah, we're good.
I mean, how's that any different than, how was your situation, do you think, different than like what happens on a lot of projects where people just get worn out and get tired?
Nothing at all. The part that, the biggest difference, the part for me, was fucking me, Arash. It was tough. And it was hard on me. That's the biggest difference. Other than that, nothing. Yeah. And I talked to a lot of core communities, essentially around the world, right? All of them having very similar issues. All of them coming, even post-burn, coming back and just being like, holy fuck, man. Our community is really hurting. We can't do something next year. Yeah. We can't do it. And I think that just inside of the core, and this is all the projects, any large-scale project, I think, that you have, outside of Burning Man, inside of Burning Man, don't care. But I think that was echoed enough for the third year in a row, kind of. That's why the Borg started changing how they are doing these regional projects, and bringing them down a little bit in scale, because I think they were hearing that collective voice inside the different communities. So no, I don't think it's any different. Yeah, I don't think my experience, it's unique in that it happened to me, and mine has its own caveats. But fuck, man. Sure.
You're sharing your corner of the world story.
Yeah. A lot of people I've talked to from different communities, they had very similar experiences.
But there's all these large scale projects on the playa. Like, what's different about the core thing that made it hard enough that the org had to really just say, you know what, let's not do this again because it's hurting people?
So there's a lot of art on playa, right? Some of them are big projects done by artists.
That's a really cute understatement, by the way.
Yeah. Doing these huge things, right? And the funding is retarded. Yeah, I just offended some people, whatever.
Use the R word.
I know. Yeah. So some of those bigger projects, I think that they do go through that thing. You talk to people who helped build X project. And you're like, oh, well, okay, you're working with that particular artist. What, that must have been great. And they're like, nah, he's an asshole. Right. It is no different. One of the main differences that I see between the two when you talk about core and you talk about something big like that is that a lot of these people are getting paid. And the artist is making money on this particular thing. They do it year round.
And there's like a dude in charge with sort of like their vision that everybody's working on.
Right. And
core was supposed to be a little bit more of a
community driven. Yeah. So everybody has a say.
Yeah.
And they do have a say. But these are people like you and me. We have day jobs. And then we get together and we do these things. Sometimes we lead them, or sometimes we just show up and swing a hammer, right? But we all think that whatever I'm doing is important and it is helping, and it is, and I get a say, and you do. and we have to figure out how to incorporate it all into it. At any given point, if I tell you you're swinging your hammer wrong, you could be upset about it. You tell Master Carpenter over there he's swinging his hammer wrong, you're probably just going to get a finger.
Yeah.
So I see a little bit of different. Community-driven, full-time artist-driven. Yes, there's community that comes into that, but there's a bigger difference inside of that. We're teaching people how to run power tools. It's not like we just brought in only carpenters in our community to help build this project. We're bringing in, stay-at-home moms who don't have no experience with table saw or chop saw or whatever. It really is community-driven, and it is people who aren't professionals. So there is a difference, I think.
Yeah, that's really interesting. In every episode of this show, every recording we do, there's usually like one or two things that I learn that are just like amazing. Like it's like some angle of something that I never imagined. And I think this was for me, like one of them. Like that's fascinating. I think a lot of people look at the completed project and they assume somebody was the captain, but there's so many different dynamics involved. I mean, like the most successful projects, like generally you have a captain, people kind of agree who the captain is. But with the core projects, it sounds like maybe it was a little too utopian that we wouldn't have a captain.
I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
And I kind of disagree.
Shocking.
I think that right? You and your fucking constructs. But there is somebody that leads not to be captain. They lead to make sure that things go on track. Bank accounts, fundraising, all that sort of stuff. It's not so much complete control over project as it is making sure that the other leads that you have in place are getting the things done, and all of that collaboration comes together to form this really pretty community-driven thing that is, wow, how did that come together? And don't kid yourself, there are people on these crews, there are engineers that know absolutely what the fuck they're doing. There are professional artists who know absolutely what they're doing. And there are some tradesmen, there's some carpenters and stuff, and wow, man, you just let them go and they build these things. Set design people that are figuring out new ways to do things, but they're bringing their craft from their set design stuff. It is really pretty. So there's lots of professionalism as well as stay-at-home moms and children and whatever doing all of the things. But you have these leads, and then the only reason that there's one or two, a lead and a co-lead or co-orchestrators or co-leads or whatever, is just to make sure that all this other stuff is getting done. And it's not to micromanage you swinging the hammer. It's kind of to make sure that the guy who's supposed to be watching you swinging the hammer, or who has, you see what I mean? So it's definitely not one man's vision, one captain's vision, and everybody just falls in line. Not even close. And some of that can get confusing, and some of that can be really difficult.
You're saying that the experience that you had with core and what you discovered from conversations with other core groups from different parts of the world was that they did have difficulty with this. Like, it's almost like it could be, I'm not taking a stance on this one way or another, but it could be that it's a tyranny to some extent might work better with a large scale project. So what works? Like, if somebody's out there looking to get into it, what do you recommend as the way to do it?
If you have tyranny like that, I think that it'll work for certain people, and you're certainly going to move a bunch of other people away. And if the other people move away willingly inside of that tyranny, then it's all going to go great, because you don't have to deal with the people that are disagreeing with you. And you're only going to keep the people that are agreeing with you.
Keep the yes men,
But I don't think that does anything to build community. If everybody has a say and everybody wants in, then we as a community come together. And we as a community can rise above the difficulties that we're having.
Yeah, ideally. But it sounds like you said that the experience was that wasn't happening 3 years in a row with all the different regions around the world.
I do not think that it didn't happen. I think that the difficulty of the communities were tired. That there wasn't going to be a way to pull enough of these key people back in to anchor a project. You can still bring other people, new people into the community and all that sort of stuff. You can still bring them in. Denise is a great example. Denise is coming in and she's building everything, right? That's Denise Lozano. Pronounced that wrong, I'm sure. Anyway, and she's building. So, you're always going to get those kinds of people that will come in and whatnot. But if you lose all of your anchors, or all of your anchors are possibly tired, it becomes difficult. And I think that people have different ideas. So, one of our lead engineers, he led the project in 2012, Dave Timms, big part of it in 2011. Did a lot of design work for 2013 as well. And I'm not saying that this is true for him at all, but the idea of been doing this for community, and then finally, what did he do, say, for 2014 for Utopia? He built ISIS, the pyramid. Mm-hmm. And that's still building community. It's just doing it differently. It's not under these rules of say core or what it has been in the past, and what we're trying to build for whatever. It's just bringing maybe even different groups of people together to build something new. And maybe he wanted to do that instead of put a lot of focus into something like a core project.
So the core project, I mean, you think that the majority of the problem with it was just people were just exhausted, that we needed more people coming in?
I still think that everything that happened with the lead that I had, Meg and I led the project in 2013. All of the things that went wrong, I think more went right. I absolutely think more went right. And so whatever difficulties I was having, and whether that be based because of my own personality conflicts, whether that be based on my alcoholism, whether that be based on disintegration of relationship, whatever I'm going through does not necessarily mean that the project itself was bad, right? And I take this experience from lighting the thing on fire. They go up on Thursday, all of them together. And watching the thing burn is beautiful, right? I'm turned around and I'm looking at the crowd that has gathered near the San Diego one to watch it burn. And it's the sea of people, and I've worked with them. They've come to help build. They've sawed, they cut, they all the things, and they're also full of joy, and they're hugging each other, and it's like this reconnection at BRC. This is our time to come together and connect and hug, and be able to stand and watch that. As pretty as that fucker burn, to see that's what was created, right? To ask me to, after everything that I went through and everything I put some other people through, and don't think you didn't put me through shit either, but all of that, would I do it again in 2014 to build that? Fuck you. No. That's the kind of where I'm kind of I need a break. That, what was created there, what we all did, so pretty. Oh my God, what's burning back here? Yeah. That's what we were going for. That was the goal. That's what we were building the entire time. That was a success. For me, though, I wouldn't do it the next year because I was done. I was tired. Yeah. And it had been too much. I had given too much. I felt I had given too much. Or, again, you'll hear a lot of different stories if you ask people the questions, if they feel comfortable enough to say. And great. Everybody has their own opinion on that. So that's what I mean when people got tired. It wasn't that the projects disintegrated everything. The projects did what they were supposed to do. They really did. Yeah. Some people got tired.
Yeah. There's no fix button for just individual journeys.
No. Not at all. And I think that something beautiful was built. And when I talk to people, especially people who were there that night during that burn, being they're moved to tears by what they saw inside of not just our community, but the other cities that were going through the same exact thing. Mwah. Beautiful. Yeah. All of it a failure? No. Difficult on people, difficult on leads, difficult on the people who put in the bulk of the work, or have done the most of the design, or have done most of the art. Yeah, it's exhausting. Do people need a break? Yeah. Will other people step up? Yeah. They will. How much can the community handle at any given moment? Yeah, my hope is that the board goes back to those large-scale core projects. Absolutely goes back to them. The Midway stuff is beautiful. The Souk stuff, that's fun. You know what I mean? Those, it's cool. I like that they're changing it up. I'd also like to see a return to those large-scale projects, regional projects. We always have the the ability to go out and build anything and take it to deep playa and possibly burn it down or anything. We can do that. I get it. There's something magical about 24 cities from around the world building these projects, and they're all burning at the same time on Thursday.
Yeah.
It's pretty. It's special.
Yeah. I'm glad you touched on your alcoholism, because that's the last kind of subject that I wanted to talk about. You've been sober now for how long?
This particular bout, at this moment in time, I think I'm roughly somewhere in the 75 day, 76, somewhere in that ballpark, 76 days. Prior to that, I had gone about 6 months, and then I relapsed, with intent. I did. I was like, I'm going to drink at the burn last year. I feel like I've got this. I can handle it. So I drank at the burn last year, and then stopped 6 months later in the ER again. Whee!
Yeah, that's I remember when I first sort of walked into the community, I talked to somebody who had been sober. I don't know who it was. I think so. Actually, somebody at like a party at your place, who had been sober for a few years, and I was trying to, I was asking them the same question that I'd like to ask you. Like, what is it like to be surrounded by so many, hardcore ragers? Because we do have a lot of ragers, but then we also have a lot of people that don't really party. Like, there's a lot of temptation. Like, do you find it to be difficult to maintain sobriety, or do you find that the community is generally pretty supportive? How has your feeling been on that?
I don't put any of it on the community at all. Proximity to alcohol is not what makes me an alcoholic. It's internal, right? Where I live, there's a liquor store. I can throw a rock at it and hit it, there's a bar right next to that. So it's not proximity that makes me an alcoholic, and nor is it you drinking that's going to make me want to drink. I either have it or I don't internally, and that's all on me. I'll find a way to get the alcohol, regardless. So when I'm in community and there's a bunch of people drinking, I don't care. That's not what makes me want to drink. So are people receptive of it? I'm not sure that some of them care themselves. If they want me to be successful, and if I'm having difficulty with something that is ultimately going to kill me if I don't stop, they're really happy about that. It doesn't make them put down their beer or their glass of wine at all. So they're supportive in that, Arash, I don't want you to die, type of way. There's a lot of love there, but it doesn't stop them from doing it, and I don't have any problem with it, being a part of a community that parties. And inside of that said, everybody does their sobriety different, much like polyamory, much like the rest of the things that we go through in our society. So I am alcohol sober, but I'm not absolutely drug sober. I still partake in some of those, but I cannot drink. I've never had a problem with the other ones.
What is it about alcohol specifically?
I don't, I guess at some point you're supposed to figure that out, what it is about alcohol. But I think it's not just alcohol. I think I could have done it with any of them, with any drug. And it is the ability to disconnect, to walk away, at least mentally walk away from whatever it is that is bugging you, or to turn off the brain, or to just make it stop for a second, Sometimes it's even that thing that you talk about with meditation, how it's just turning the brain off. Well, I probably would have had better luck if I was doing it with via meditation rather than the bottom of a bottle, right? But why alcohol? You know what? Sometimes, thank God, alcohol instead of heroin or meth or... I think that some of them could have caused a lot more harm than alcohol caused. And I'm not saying that alcohol didn't cause harm, obviously, but why alcohol? I think it could have been anything to make me be able to stop thinking. Just turn it off for a second. Just turn it off.
What is it about the thinking that becomes burdensome? What is it that you're thinking about?
Yes. So when you go back through and read your journals, there could be a half a page that is, you're like, oh, I totally know what that was about. And then there's like 3 pages of like, wow, I was all over the board that night or that week or that whatever. The answer is still yes. What am I thinking about? I'm thinking about everything. Am I thinking about world hunger? Am I thinking about, cancer? Am I thinking about whatever it may be? Different types of relationships that I have. Am I thinking about my mother? Am I thinking about my dead father? Am I thinking about... Sure. What are the things I want to turn off? Sometimes you just want to stop.
So how are you dealing with those things now?
How am I dealing with them? I don't have that disconnect. I don't have that stop that I was using alcohol for. And now they're not so troublesome. Interesting, right?
Yeah. The option to run away doesn't exist, so you're just kind of like, oh, this isn't as bad as I thought it would be.
And chances are, whatever I'm thinking about, it'll keep till breakfast.
Yeah.
Right? But I think that also comes with the ability to process it a little bit better. The amount of alcohol I was consuming definitely was starting to make me numb, forgetting things. So it's altering the brain, and so maybe the brain isn't able to process as well as I'm able to process when I'm sober. And by sober, I mean not the next morning because you still got alcohol in your system. I'm talking about when you get disconnected from the actual booze in your system. So maybe I'm able to process better. And so these other things aren't so burdensome, or the weight of the world isn't on my shoulder. Maybe it never was. Maybe I put it there, at least inside my head. So I haven't needed an outlet to replace the alcohol. So I think maybe the alcohol was part of the problem that I was using to get away from. Interesting.
Yeah, that is fascinating. So with you, do you feel that it wasn't something that was genetic, like the alcoholic gene? Do you feel that with you it is very specific to you and your upbringing and your experiences in life?
I'm all grown up, Arash. I'm a big boy, I'm an adult and I make my own fucking decisions. Do I think that I'm genetically predisposed to alcohol abuse? You're never going to get me to agree to that. You're just not, because I don't believe it. I make my own decisions. I made that decision. I've repeatedly made that decision for years and years and years of my life. And even when it was costing me close to my life, I still made the decision to keep drinking. I'm not going to put that on anybody else or anything else or nothing. Society had a role in it. Parents had a role in it. Fuck that. Curt had a role in it, though.
Yeah.
Very much so.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Well, we're getting into the end of it over here. I think some people are going to be a little disappointed with this podcast. I think they were expecting a lot more dick jokes, and we ended up going down the serious side of things.
When we were talking about how is this going to go, and I was like, it really depends on how Arash steers it, because I should just start this out with his first question, just answering it with a dick comment, and just get it on its way, right?
Yeah.
And actually, really impressed the different directions that you took it. And it didn't really allow an opportunity for me to be an asshole.
Yeah, no, I think everybody was really looking forward to that. And, I don't know. I kind of felt like during the course of our conversation, it seems like this was a good avenue for you to get out some of the things that perhaps you hadn't had other opportunities to get out on. And I didn't steer it. The energy steered it in that direction.
Do your parents know you're a hippie? Fuck being gay, man. Do they know you're a hippie?
Me?
Yeah. It's
oh, God. Oh, man. I don't think they can quite grasp what it is.
Right.
My dad, he came and he saw my apartment. And I was telling Stephanie this before, actually. Came and saw my apartment and he's like, oh, I didn't want to tell you. And but I was very embarrassed. Like, what are you, some kind of hippie? I'm like,
What does that actually mean?
Yeah.
Like, am I different than you? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's about where we're going to leave that one, right?
Yeah. And I gave up trying to explain that one. Just kind of moved on from it.
So let me ask you a question.
Oh, you're taking over.
That's the question. When are you going to get interviewed?
I don't know.
I think it would be
interesting.
fun.
Yeah.
And it's not that you're not being interviewed every time, because
I
the
am.
conversations kind of do what they do, and you have some of your own to say and whatnot. But I think it would be very interesting for you to field some questions for a full podcast. Like, yeah,
I would
get there.
Love to do that. I've been interviewed a couple of times on a couple of other shows. I feel like a lot of the interview process in most interviewers tend to go towards like a very specific list of questions, like give me this fact, give me this fact, give me this fact. And I sort of discovered that my gift in this process, and I've been co-hosting another show for 5 years, that my contribution to it was that I would go in with no preparation whatsoever, and I could kind of like really dig into sort of what the other person is. And funny enough, you are partly responsible for this fucking car wreck that is Burner Podcast, because we had a conversation a while back. You know what? It wasn't even a conversation. We were at Cable's house at a party, and somebody said something, and somebody made a joke, and then I made a joke, and then your smart-ass comment to that was, oh, or Iranian podcasters. And that was you referring to me, of course. And that was before that we started the show, of course. And I remember that was sort of the moment that when I was initially trying to come up with a concept of like, how do I dissect individuals within this community? Because like that's what fascinates me the most, is that you look at people in our circles and you think like, wow, that person fucking crazy, let's stay away from him. And then you talk to this person and you're like, holy shit, you are amazing. Like there's so much that you can teach the world. And I wanted to find a way to show that. And so this idea had originally come up as like a video project, and I'm like, that's going to take way too much work. Got to edit shit. And the stories are too interesting. I want to get more in depth. And then it was after you had made that joke that that was part of what led to the little light bulb coming on in my head of, hey, why don't we start a podcast?
So this goes all the way back to something I brought up earlier. Did the hazing and the snark possibly steer you in a direction?
Are you taking credit for Burner Podcast, dickhead? Is that what's happening right now?
I think you just gave it to me. All I'm saying is that the hazing that we all go through in this fucking community, we absolutely learn from it all the time. Are you going to the Burn this year?
I am.
Are you going to be in a better position to come by wherever I'm camping and let me haze you some more?
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome.
I'm looking forward to. I'm more prepared. My utility belt of snark is now readily packed. I'm ready to go, and I feel like I'll have a better idea of how to function. So yeah, I'm psyched. I'm really excited.
So as we're walking away from this, shall we just leave them with a little taste of possibly some of the things that might kind of come up in your interview?
Hit it.
When are you gonna start dating a burner?
Oh yeah, that's a whole other 45 minutes.
It's a whole podcast, isn't it?
Yeah. A lot of people asked. All right, I'm just gonna stop recording here. That's when the music thing is coming up and blah blah blah. All right, well there it is. Interview with Curt Benedetto. You can tweet me directly at Mr. Arash. That's spelled MRARASH. And when discussing the show, please do use the hashtag BurnerPodcast. Shows are up on Libsyn and SoundCloud first. Libsyn is the broadcasting platform. The player on there is a little... it's not perfect. It's a little jerky in my experience. But, SoundCloud's is perfect. SoundCloud's sound quality is even better. And that's where you can download the show. But Libsyn and SoundCloud is where they go up first. And then Libsyn is the one that broadcasts it over to iTunes and Stitcher and TuneIn.com and some other places as well. So that's sort of where the shows go up. Leave us some reviews on iTunes, though. We would really appreciate that. It helps us get noticed. It would be very nice of you. Our intermission music is by Duckman. Check out his music at duckmansd.bandcamp.com. And if you're a musician in the community, tweet our music editor, Navjeet, at I am Navjeet. Navjeet is spelled Navjeet.
at I am Navjeet on Twitter. The Burner Podcast theme song is America's Horse with No Name remix, produced by Joman. Check out his stuff at soundcloud.com/DJ Joman. This episode is produced by Meg King. If you have questions or suggestions for future guests, shoot them over to Meg King. She is on Twitter at @ThatMegKing. Our online editor is Tanasi. He writes and curates the blog and can be reached on Twitter at @burner_podcast. The underscore is very important. Or as always, you can contact any of the staff at burnerpodcast.com. There's a contact form over on the website. You can do it there. Hope you'll join us next time. We release new episodes on the first and third Wednesdays of the month. So until next time, love and light and all other crap. Good night.